So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's lecture. It's our second day of innovation management for AI. I was hoping more would come on campus, but we have far more online following this course. So again, if you can make it on campus today, that would be great. We're starting with a guest lecture. I'm very happy that Philip Pöschke is here. He works at Accenture, and he will tell you more about enterprise transformation leveraging AI, and the floor is yours.
Thanks. Thank you so much. So, good morning, everybody. I brought today some, I would say, high-level slides with me, just to give you a glimpse into many sections of what is transforming enterprises and how AI here has a massive impact, of course. Yeah. So to start with, let's take a look at the first graph. Yeah. So I don't know how about you, but back at my time when I started studying and programming, I used Stack Overflow 80% of the time. Yeah. So and why do we see here quite a dip? Yeah. The 50% decline is coming from ChatGPT at its time when it launched, right? So this is definitely something quite impressive. And if you take a look over the years of Stack Overflow, it was always rising and rising. But you see, any platform can be transformed in a good or bad way. And this time, ChatGPT took over. Yeah? So let's see how Stack Overflow will react here. But let's take a further look on some impacts. This time again, Gen AI, what it's doing, and I think this is quite immense. If we take a look at the average, around about 50% average of all these work efficiency increases that you can see here, from coding tasks to image generation to writing a research paper or customer query resolvement, right? We can see there's a massive dip from without Gen AI and with Gen AI. So let's take only the AI here, as I counter it as Gen AI is, of course, part of AI. So this has a massive impact. And if we think about this now, if these are in a company that does software development, right? And if you see 55% of increasement in efficiencies, what does that mean? That means that from today to tomorrow, you have 50% more staff. So you have more work efficiency that you can deliver to your customer, to your clients, to your partners, whatever, right? So this is massive. But this is always taking into consideration that, for example, here, the coding task, this is taking a look at one single field. Yeah. So it's very easy to use ChatGPT and to ask to check my code, right? Or use GitHub Copilot. But how to integrate AI into enterprises, right? Because we don't only want to use single sources, single solutions. We want to roll it out over the whole enterprise. And this is not that easy because everybody can use ChatGPT, right? And just enhance and make your work more efficient. But what about making the whole company and the whole strategy and solutioning more efficient? So this is why today we take a look at some more points. We start with some KPIs, with some key numbers. Then we're taking a look at the framework itself. So what key components does it take to transform such a large enterprise? What are the components of a strategy, right? So what do you need to take a look at? How to govern it? And I think you heard already about responsible AI. So we only take here a high-level glimpse of the components of responsible AI. And then we're coming to a conclusion. And if we can make it in time, we will take a look at how to get started, right? So what steps do you need to take at the very beginning? What mindset do you need to take to start with an enterprise transformation with AI? Yeah? So let's take a look at the state of AI, right? So I brought here some very interesting numbers, at least for me, they were quite impressive. 84% of global executives say they must scale AI to achieve their growth objectives. Right? What does that mean? That today, companies have the fear that AI is overrolling them, right? Is like an overkill for them. So they really have the impression that they need to go with AI. and 84% is quite a massive scale to really achieve their growth, right? Most companies aim for a double-digit 14, 15, 16% of growth. So if we take a look in the next 5 years, next number, 75% think that they are going at risk with the whole company if they are not applying AI. I think that's quite massive, right? And this is going from every industry, right? This is not industry specific, let's say only automotive or only life science. So this is overall industries. So AI is really getting a prerequisite to achieve your positive returns. Yeah. So even the C-level recognized AI as one big step to invest into. So what does it look today, right? So if we take a look at most companies, right, there are forerunners, of course. If you take a look at the data foundation for AI, still maturing, right? Most of them started hearing about AI 1.5, 2 years ago when ChatGPT came up and everything was full in the news. But most of them are at the very, very beginning. Right? Then what I said at the very beginning, proof of concepts are getting introduced in many departments in the companies, right? But you don't need to think only into proof of concept. You need to think in scaled AI, right? How can you, if you make one benefit, how can you roll it out over the whole company? What do you need to think about is processes and people around you in the other compartments that you're interacting with. And this is thought far too little today. Then, of course, everybody's thinking, or some years ago, thinking about data science and advanced analytics, right? Everything is siloed, especially with the old traditional companies. Every department is, in competition with the other one, right? So there is no hand in hand. Then governance, especially AI governance or ML governance, is definitely something that nobody's thinking of at the very beginning when they start with, right? They just want to see some step up at the very beginning. And then, yeah, if you take a look at the ecosystem, right? Every day there's coming some AI startup from nowhere, is adding some value, is adding some services. So very confusing ecosystem right now, because how do you know what's best for your company and what brings you furthest? So just to have some key situations, you're spending far too much time and too much costs, right, to operationalize it. You don't know if it's trustworthy, if it's reliable. So you need to maybe include some legal team to check. You don't have it in-house, so you need to partner again. Then you don't know redundancy, right? What we had right now, many POCs in many departments, maybe all of them are doing the same, right? To speed up their efficiencies or their processes, but maybe every department is doing it on their own. So there's a lot of overlap in these techniques. And at the very end, of course, there need to be more transparency and more fairness overall in the model choice. So let's see the importance of an AI transformation. How is it coming? If we take a look at the business executives, what they think about AI innovation, right? 76% of executives see Gen AI, right? AI mostly, as an opportunity for revenue growth. Of course, right? How does it come? They see a lot of processes, right? And they think these processes can be, like we saw at the second slide, can be really drilled down to a minimum to really have a perfect interaction between human and machine, right? But 50%, nearly 50% of them don't think they are even ready to really manage these risks and these scale outs in the enterprise. So yeah, they think there is a huge benefit, but they are not ready, right? So quite interesting. And how can they tackle, right? What can they do? So if you take a look, of course, all the C-level, then the forecasting from the finance department, from sales, especially marketing. There's a lot of AI, right? They are pushing into the company, right? So especially marketing slides, you're creating some nice images that you can publish. You do some auto creation on some LinkedIn texts, and bam, it's out, right? It takes a minute right now. So marketing took a massive advantage. But of course, yeah, there is HR, there is IT, there is especially legal, yeah, that are pushing against. So it's quite a discussion in large enterprises, how to use AI, how to responsibly use AI, who is managing it. Yeah, then if you do a POC, who is operationalizing it, who is doing the MVP, who is doing the industrialization, and so on and so on. There are a lot of questions, and this is why AI is really reaching the tipping point right now, and building really pressure on these businesses to move a step further, right, and go out of these only experimental POC phase. So another key figures, but very interesting as well. So 92% think that the AI is a crucial advantage, of course, for future enhancements. Yeah. Then if you take a look at the employees, because you can't roll it out top down, right? Just C-level thinking about, yeah, we want to have AI, just roll it out, right? You need to do some surveys on the employees. And these employees think that 79% of them think that AI will significantly impact their work, right? Especially taken, for example, the automotive with production, manufacturing, right? The people at the band. Will everything change? Will they lose their jobs? Or what is happening here, right? This is creating a lot of confusion and a lot of fear as well. Yes, and then of course we have some interaction-driven, AI-driven interactions by 2025, where 85% from the customer think that most of them will be driven by AI. 85% of these executives. But okay, let's now take a look at a different angle, right? So let's split a large enterprise into many layers. So we have the business capabilities, right? We have the applications, we have data, and we have the ground technology. So really top down. And if we start from bottom to top, you will see that around about 40% here are estimated within the layer of technology to be an increase in efficiency. So you will be 40% faster or more efficient in your tech stack. Yeah, so super interesting. Then, especially every industry that handles a lot with ML models, it's all by its own, with large enterprise models, they're really aiming on an AI foundation models, right? So, and these models in the end will really revolutionize the sector of data within the enterprises. Then, of course, software vendors like we had it before, right? Copilot, and there are many more black box solutions to enhance your code right now, so which are reliable, which are not. But in the end, by 2026, they think that it will have a 70% enhancement. Yeah? So on the applications level. And of course, in the end, this 183 is coming from 2019, right? But you see how much change there happened in the last 4 years. Yeah? So massive. But let's take a look now. Let's go away from these numbers and let's take a look what really makes such an enterprise transform. What components do we have here? So if we take a look at the framework, if you think about a large enterprise and you think about a real transformation with AI, what is important? So you take a look at the market, right? So you go at some fairs, you take a look at some presentations, you always see some vendors, you see it on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and whatnot. So you're checking for the market. Then you need to have in perspective the AI strategy. We're coming to that in the next chapter, and the responsible AI. Yeah, we're taking a look at that because this is quite important. Then what we already said before, the organization. Yeah, you can't roll it out top down and just think that the whole organization will follow. You really need to pay attention. You really need to do employer surveys. You really need to get everybody included, because this is an enterprise transformation and not a department transformation. Yeah, you can't just roll it out to IT and then have the idea that everybody follows. Of course, the same is coming with the people. Yeah, you need to change people. You need to include people. Then next step, the data. I think data and controls comes with it itself. Yeah, but data needs to transform, especially if you want to use AI in a large scale. Quite in a sense, data is the gold, right? Right now, is a new oil. So really, data needs to be enhanced. Yeah, it needs to be super clean. It needs to be reliable. Where is it coming from? You need to check the sources. So this is getting huge. Controls, of course, everything needs to be KPI driven. We are still in the open market, right? So you need to have a competitive advantage. So you need to check your KPIs. And at the very end, what we already said, we have the responsible AI. So we have already flying over it, but here you see I just added some terms that you get a better understanding of the 7 pillars. Yeah. So we will share the slides later as well if you don't need to take pictures. So yeah, like I said, in the AI trends, right? There's what tooling is out there, what market trends do we have? The AI strategy, right? Very important, because the AI strategy needs to go in hand with the business strategy. I think makes only sense, right? But in the end, your objectives to what you are working towards, they are changing. So you need to really interact here. You need to have a very clear roadmap. Then organization, we talked about, it's a lot of change. It's a lot of people and project management, of course. And the whole interaction and culture needs to change. Yeah, that is coming directly within the people. So cultural fit, yeah, because everybody, yeah, will have to change their minds, maybe will need to, yeah, not block the new transformation. Yeah, and this is very important, and this takes a lot of time. Yeah. Of course, leadership support, as we said, yeah, top down. In the end, it will come top down, but it should not be pushed top down. If we take a look at data, you can take the full width of data, right? Data security, data management, access is so. This is, I think, a presentation on its own. And then we are at the very end from responsible AI. Like I heard, you already heard something about responsible AI. So especially on ethics and the policies and regulations, EU AI Act, right? Very, very present nowadays. So a lot of talking, a lot of overview. Let's take a look in the first step in the AI strategy that we saw in the 7 pillars, the second pillar. So if we think about a split, right? If we think now top down, yeah. So you have a governance that is coming, let's say, from the business department, yeah, and is saying, okay, we want to roll out AI as a strategy the next 3 years. So who is governing it? Who is taking a look at the KPIs of the rollout? Who is taking a look at the target definition year by year? And of course, who are you integrating with? So this is why we have the next line. We have a very clear operating model. So what role do I need? Yeah, not only people-wise, because one person can have multiple roles, right? In such a global rollout. But what do you need for that? You need talent and you need a skill, of course, yeah? Because you can't just start within the IT department just saying, okay, you are now the new AI engineer coming from the front end. So there's a lot of change that needs to happen and a lot of mindset change that needs to happen. And exactly this is coming to the third pillar, to the culture and change. Yeah? Because in the end, behaviors need to change. Because if you're rolling out AI and you roll out some processes, this will only have an advantage if the process behind is making it more lean, more effective, faster, more cost efficient. That's depending on the section, right? But what does it take to be able to do something like that? Of course, you cannot roll out POCs on edge devices and just use them as they are. Of course, yeah, you can, but this is not a scaled AI solution that is really bringing enhancement and advantages to the whole company, right? So you need to think about AI platforms. What can you use? Yeah, are you going on-prem? Are you going in the cloud? Are you doing hybrid solutions? What data are you using? So this is the data part that we already talked about, right? But in the end, you need to define newly your tech stack, right? What applications are you running right now? How can you transform these applications? How are these applications or functionalities that you're using right now interacting in your process? Yeah, because if you're creating these process chain, maybe you need to switch to another tech stack because just some other or like say old school applications are not that interconnectable with your new strategy, right? Maybe there's a block, maybe the API is not that usable, maybe it's not giving that much insights, maybe it's even blocking responsible AI, right? If you don't have the full insight into your tech stack, that is maybe blocking in the end the trust that is coming into AI. Yeah. Then, of course, cybersecurity and responsible AI. I already touched on that. Yeah, everything needs to be fully reliable. It doesn't help if you do new rollout. You're integrating 5 to 10 new applications. If everybody is thinking this is a black box, and every time you're running some processes, you have another outcome. That's maybe not the target. But who is in the end trying to deliver all of that? Yeah. So who is responsible for AI? Of course, there's a governance that is taking care of setting targets. So like the high level department leads and C-level, right? Where we want to be, how it should be structured. But who is setting it? Who is doing the daily work? Who is doing the integration with the people, with the technology, with the IT department, with the business department? That is really a delivery office, right? And this delivery office is then taking a look at the KPIs. How can we reach that? What steps do we need? What processes do we need to crack open to achieve this performance? Yeah? And here already we see there's a bit of algorithm, right? There's a lot of tech and data, of course. This is the base, right? But there's a lot of people. We have culture, we have change, we have operating model, we have governance, we have talent, we have a delivery office. All of that are people and processes in the end that are coming together to build this AI strategy. But we will touch upon that later. Now let's take a look at the AI strategy, but from a different perspective, okay? So in the very middle and the center, we have the AI strategy. Yeah? This is counted into governing practices and structures. Yeah? So everything counts into that. We have on the side, again, responsible tech, so responsible AI again, and the operating model. On the very top, there's a workforce again. So the mindset that needs to change, the change itself. Yeah. So the whole company and departments need to be ready for change. So they need to be aware of it. And of course, the workforce. And at the very bottom, we're coming then with the technical capabilities, meaning again, data and AI, what we saw before, right? Is one pillar, data and AI. And then AI-powered products. So again, the applications and the data architecture behind. So a bit different perspective on the strategy, but in the end, same. From what we saw before, the components are mirroring here in the slide again, just in a different angle. So how to govern it? Let me read that out just to give it a bit more sense here. AI governance is the practice of using a system of rules, principles, and processes to build fair AI that aligns with the organization's strategies, values, and fulfills legal requirements required by law. Oof, okay, wow. So in the end, to say it simple, right? AI governance is all about processes and people, yeah, to really define coming from where, going to where, right? So you have a full chain of openness, of reliability. And in the end, based on that, everything needs to be, of course, responsible. Yeah, it needs to be, it needs to comply, it needs to be open, it needs to, of course, intersect with regulations and laws, very important. And you need, and this is I think for me, in the end, the most important, the whole company needs to trust in these processes. Nobody is using an AI application or processes where they think that this is not leading to their goal, right? So if trust is earned when actions meet words, we see AI governance as making actions meet the words. Chris Butler, I think, very, very nice citation here. So let's see the AI governance. How could we now operate it, right? How can we take a look, or what components do we need here? So of course, at the very bottom, right, we have the consumers, so the ones that are using it internally or maybe externally as well, but mostly internally. And we have the ones that are building it, right? So these are I think, the two most important layers or the components in this layer, because they are interfering with each other. Yeah, the IT is only, of course, integrating applications that can be consumed or that really bring a benefit in the end. Yeah. Of course, on top, there is coming database owners and catalog and documentation. I think this is something that, that you need to just fulfill to then fulfill the ethical AI, responsible AI again. But what do you need? You need technical experts, right? You need the ethical experts, you need the legal experts, and the subject matter experts. So the SMEs, yeah, the cracks. Because in the end, all of these components are required to really bring these 7 pillars alive. Yeah, so you need to have these different views, these different agents, to make AI governance really operatable and active. And this is why next step, then you need somebody that is controlling that is taking a look at it, that is having the vision, the overall vision in mind. And this is, of course, in very large enterprises, you have then like executive governance council, but mostly have one governance council that is taking a look that all of that is going in the right direction. So responsible AI, very often said right now, right? But let's take a look at the 8 pillars here that we have, at the 8 dimensions. And just that you don't wonder, these purple ones are the ones that we just added because of Gen AI. Yeah, because there's coming a bit more components on top of it than just with standard AI and ML that had been there before. Yeah. So starting at the very top right, talking about fairness, of course, I think, yeah, no further words needed. Then robustness and accountability. Yeah, I think accountability is something very, very important. That it's auditability, because in the end, you need to fulfill every year, every 2 years, your audit. You need to be conform to your standards, to the regulations in the industry. And it's very tricky to, point 1, document that. Point 2, make AI not look like a black box, yeah, to really make it understandable and that everybody can follow, and it's completely end-to-end documented. That counts into, on the left side, the transparency, right? Because one goes with the other, of course. Yeah, you can't have accountability without transparency. Then privacy, yeah, of course, especially with responsible AI. Yeah, you always need to check on the rights and on data protection, personal information, protection of personal information, and so on. And of course, in the end, sustainability. Yeah. So if we now take a look at the Gen AI part, yeah, liability and compliance. I think maybe you have heard of it, maybe you have checked it as well. You have tested it, ChatGPT, right? Who is having the ownership on the code that you get, right? Because maybe you're using it, you're getting some code snippets, you copy paste it easily in your enterprise solution. But do you have the rights on it? Do you have the IP on it? Are you even allowed to use it commercially? So super tricky question, right? So very, very complicated to really, I think this is another session by its own, but IP ownership on Gen AI applications is massive. And then, of course, we have the same Gen AI section in the soundness as well. Yeah, language toxicity. So is the answer always the same in Bavarian, in Saxon, in German, in English? Yeah, so very, very complicated as well. Yeah, just to give you some high level insights here. So if we take now a summary of all of that, what we heard, right? A lot of components, a lot of, yeah, here the 7 pillars, here the 8 components from the strategy, from the governance, from responsible AI. But what in the end is now bringing you to your target, to transform your enterprise with AI, right? So I think very fitting. This is from BCG. I love this graph. It's the 10-20-70 rule. In the end, 10% of the transformation is taking to develop all these algorithms. That's really not that much, right? 20% is on building the technology, the tech stack, the data infrastructure and architecture behind. Yeah, but in the end, to really make that transformation come true, 70% is on people and processes. Yeah, what we had taken a look at before at the key components of the strategy as well, the work culture, the business process design, right? The organization design, talent and skill. This is always coming again and again and again, right? And so you see, I mean, the models are very important, right? They are building the tip of the iceberg. So really undiscussable. The tech stack, super important. But in the end, people and process changes are the critical factors that make that fall. Yeah. Maybe one very interesting example from my personal development. So 5 years ago already, we developed with the LMU clinic. We developed a solution that is helping them to make better decisions with AI based on retrospective data from the last 20 years for organ transplantation. Yeah, so recipient and donor matching is not that easy, right? And there are a lot of medical guidances where you can say, okay, I can count, I can calculate statistically what organ from what person is coming into or will be given to what recipient, right? Very tricky, yeah, because is only like the male organ, the male liver going to a male person or to a female, or what if you have like a 70-year-old and the highest top-notch recipient is like a little girl, right? So what's the fit? Super complicated. What we did. This comes with huge ethical concerns, yeah, and this is why the LMU came back at that time. The surgeons came to me and asked, "Hey, can we solve that issue with AI? Because we have the feeling that if we're going with that guideline, there might be advantages, there might be enhancements. We could maybe, if we choose different patterns, we might have a higher survival rate. So." How do you tackle that issue? Yeah, it's not that easy. In the end, we developed everything from scratch because we needed to go through the ethical board, right? To really lay open that it's not a black box. If we run the algorithm 100 times, every time it's the same output. It's really reliable. You can check it end to end. And we developed it quite a long time. And we achieved 11% higher survival rate. So what is massive, but in the end, and now we're coming back to it, you have a solution, how to integrate it in the processes. Is now the ambulance that is coming to the accident, is he directly calling and giving through all these parameters that somebody in the clinic can type it in, can call the best matching recipient that is coming into the hospital? So this process is super complicated. It's not matching. It's not so easy to activate that and to include that in the daily business in a clinic, right? If you take a look at the clinic, everything goes second by second, right? And you don't have too much time to enable something like that. So huge advantage, right? But it's an edge solution. This to roll out in daily business, super hard. Yeah. And the advantage of AI is not coming by edge solutions. It's coming by global company-wide rollouts. So enough talking. How to get started, right? How are you tackling something like that? If you're going now back into your company, you're talking to your boss, to your colleagues, how can we manage something like that? So at the very beginning, and this is what we said at the very at the earlier step of this presentation, the targets of AI need to go in hand with business KPIs, right? So the business strategy need to align with the AI strategy. Yeah, you can't go in a completely different direction. It will interfere in the end. So really take your imperatives and target them accordingly. Then define the approach. Yeah, do an analysis of all departments. Check what POCs they have, what pain points they do have, what efficiency gains you will see. And then it's very important to collect all of them. Yeah, collect these opportunities, and then you need to go and funnel them, right? If you think about a funnel, right, and on the left side, there you're throwing in all the opportunities, and at the very end, very, very late, yeah, if you have done all your operations, all your governance, what is left over? Yeah, and this is if you want to take a look at it, a perfect example for it is the stage gate process. This is how it's called, stage gate process. Because in this long line of your process to define your perfect steps of AI, your AI strategy, your KPIs, and so on, you need to activate some gates, right? Gate one could be, do we have enough talent right now to, for example, activate or develop the first AI solution? Yeah, I can guarantee you half of the opportunities are gone, mostly. Yeah, because most of them, like we saw before, is going down by people and talent. And then, yeah, you can take a step forward. So which ones are fulfilling responsible AI, which ones go in line with the business strategy, and so on and so on. So you can define your gates however you want them, but you need to make them more and more and more and more crisp until the low-hanging fruits are in the end, that's what left over. Yeah. And this is exactly the next one. Identify the entry points for the change. Yeah, because then you have identified your entry points. So proof of concept we talked about, legacy analytics strategy, right? Of course, governance related needs. Yeah, this is something that you need to go with, of course. Yeah, because if you have these old black box solutions, for example, you need to do the change. You need to bring it into your company. So, and as we have it from before, line of business transformation. Yeah, everything needs to go in hand. And then there are only 3 words left, but in the end you can summarize it. You just need to make it. Yeah, just go for it. And very important, include the whole company, include processes and people. Yeah, and then you can shape, transform, and manage. Yeah, this is, I think, the biggest outcome. Good. So a lot of numbers, a lot of key facts. I rushed a bit because we started a bit late to not take too much time from the rest of your presentation. Feel free at the very beginning, feel free to ping me via LinkedIn or via mail or something like that if you have any questions, right? So this presentation will be shared anyways. Yeah, so you can take a look at it. If something is unclear, please come back to me. I'm super happy to share more information or maybe even more examples, right? But to go even deeper into every section would have made this presentation far too long. So now are there any questions? Anything that I can answer directly? Anything that you want to? Yeah, please.
About the CEO that uses AI to substitute themselves with an AI meetings to write the meeting notes and everything. But he failed to tell his team that he was not actually online. So afterwards they found out and then he communicated clearly, but it worked quite well. How do you see AI for leaders' positions?
Very good question. The question is, how responsible in the decisions is the AI, right? Because of course, hard fact business KPIs, easy. You have all the numbers, you have all the key facts, you have the retrospective data, you can even do market analysis. All of that is going super fast with AI. But in the end, not every company, most of the companies are people businesses, right? What are you with your, I don't know, 20,000 colleagues? What are you without your people, right? So everything is a people business. And this is, I think, something that a true leader is making the difference to an AI still right now today. Yeah, everything might change. But in the end, of course, you can take over most of his responsibilities and make his life easier. Yeah. So maybe you can make the C-level or higher upper management a lot leaner, because you don't need so much people. You can automate a lot of stuff. Absolutely true. But in the end, yeah, the human interaction is, I think, something that is still super important.
Changing the culture and the people is the most difficult thing. So would you see that as the main task for the leadership position that they have to? But how would they do that? I mean, most of them don't even have a lot of experience in AI themselves. They don't even know what it is, or they don't even know what their subordinates do with AI or how they use it. So how are they supposed to lead the change if they don't even know themselves?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very good question, but very difficult one because it's very broad. I mean, if you take a look at the last half year of what is expected from especially CIOs, especially the CIOs are being seen to develop themselves to the new CAIOs. Yeah, they need to be a lot more. They need to have a lot more knowledge about AI and what it brings with it. Yeah. So especially if we have a lot of trainings, you see all the C-level that is trying to make up from the last 2 to 3 years. But in the end, you don't need to be the expert of AI to be a good C-level or a good leader. Yeah, you just need to hear to your departments and to your people, and this is another process thing, I think, because as C-level you don't need to know everything, yeah, but you need to know how to interact with your people and how to bring it back. But super complicated, yeah, because it depends on the industry. Yeah, I mean it's something different if you are the lead of a manufacturing plant, or if you have a 50 people software development agency. So this is really, I think, point by point wise to take a look into. But very interesting question, definitely.
Where would the leaders system in this process, or is it mostly technical?
I would say actually 50-50, yeah, because it's not to underestimate. I mean there's a lot of fear on AI and a lot of respect, but in the end, most employees are coming to the leaders and telling them, hey, I'm not feared on AI, but I know how to make my processes more lean, more faster, make my own life easier, right? And most of them have acknowledged that already, that AI won't replace them. It makes their life more comfortable with the right use, definitely, yeah, in most cases. So a lot of push is coming from really bottom to top nowadays. So like what you say, C-level need to act if they want or not, because employees are really pushing for it. So there's coming a lot of development and a lot of POCs that the departments are rolling out on themselves from the bottom. So you need to come from the application part. But of course, KPI-wise, and what we saw at the very beginning on the numbers, 75% of them seeing it as required for the next 5 years to really bring that to life. Otherwise, they are out of business. So it's a need right now. But of course, again, dependent on the industries. Yeah, very important. Yeah. Any further question? If not, take the time to digest. Yeah, I mean, there's, I mean, we can share my connect, right? My mail and everything. Yeah, take your time to address all your questions. Slides will be shared, and it was a pleasure to present today this presentation with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, now welcome back from the break, and thanks again to Philip for your insights. And I've uploaded the slides at our Nextcloud directory in the meantime. So thank you very much. And I don't see any new questions coming in, but if there are any, I'm sure they will get in touch with you by email. In our last session yesterday, we finished with assurance. So we're in the midst of this AI transformation of a company where we did that. And then we looked at contemporary challenges, told you a little bit about all these fears around AI. And this is how this term AI assurance has developed in the last few years. And something that is often then expected is explainable AI. Because a lot of AI or a lot of machine learning models are considered black box models. There are some that are very transparent how they make decisions, like a decision tree. You can just follow the decision tree. But for other models, you can easily get an output. You can maybe determine, if you know the ground truth, how good or how bad the output is. But the question is why the model has made that prediction. And that's something that is not that clear for a lot of machine learning models, for example, a neural network. And the field of explainable AI aims to make those so-called black box models more transparent. Sometimes XAI is an acronym used for explainable AI. And what it aims at is that you not only make a prediction, but also explain how you made the decision. As I said, some models are inherently explainable. So with a decision tree, you can just plot it and see why the decision was made that way. But there are, challenges for other models, say a neural network, which is inherently complex and more like a black box. For a neural network, you could obviously print out all the rules. And if you have billions of connections, you could print an ever longer set of rules from there if you wish. But that's probably not very helpful if you aim for explainable AI. So for neural networks, if you work with images, what's very helpful is you can visualize some of the neurons, say in a convolutional neural network, and you can see what these convolutions actually recognize. So for vision, this looks quite okay. And what you can also do is you can sort of build a heat map and visualize that on an image. And then you see which pieces or which pixels of the image are actually the more important ones to make a decision. This can help. And sometimes this can also help you to see if there's any bias. There were some examples of maybe neural networks that try to distinguish between different animals, but the data was heavily biased and the neural network didn't actually look at the animal, but at the background and say all animals of a certain type had a white background and other animals of a different type had some green background, and the neural network actually focused on that. So this can actually be super helpful to see what the neural network looks at and if there's maybe a bias in your data. This is a figure that I found on the internet, and I want to discuss it with you. So this plot has two axes. One is the explainability, and one is the prediction accuracy. And we see there are things like a neural network that are not that explainable, and a rule-based system would be more explainable. And then there's the other axis about the prediction accuracy. What do you think about this plot? Would you agree with it or disagree with it? Yeah.
Figure, it seems like some models are generally better than others, because you can say that prediction accuracy is generally better than neural networks. It highly depends on the data.
That's true, because we looked at the no free lunch theorem. And while maybe neural networks, say in real or in specific real world cases, like for images or speech, could be more helpful than some simple rule-based system, you cannot generalize this. So I have big problems with plots like this one here. Yet you find this stuff on the internet and people start believing it. However, it can sometimes be argued that, yeah, for certain decision problems like in vision or speech, you want maybe a better accuracy and you need a more complex model that may not be that interpretable or explainable. This is something, maybe a trend you could see in some real world cases, but it cannot be generalized. And yet tree models are extremely powerful, like random forest, gradient boosted trees. They work super well on tabular data. And eventually a tree-based model is a rule-based model. So how does this distinguish here? And what does probabilistic mean? Most of them are probabilistic. And a linear model is not necessarily more accurate than a tree-based model. In fact, the tree-based model can learn non-linearities, which the linear one cannot. So I'm deeply confused by that figure. And that's why I put it here and wanted to discuss it with you. So I totally disagree about this one. Again, some screenshots from discussions on LinkedIn, and I sometimes remove the names and pictures, not to blame, just for a discussion. And it's been argued by someone that the idea of black box algorithms is not sustainable. And the question is, if we are not able to explain algorithms we build, who is going to? We have to own that. And if we cannot take responsibility, maybe the complexity is too much. Good intentions don't excuse bad results. Trust is a big deal. We don't just get to own the good results of work. We also need to own the bad results. And then there's now all these debates about regulation. And this discussion here was from maybe 2 years ago, when the AI Act was not ratified yet, only proposed, and we'll later look in the AI Act in detail. The fifth point is when regulation comes to our field, and it will come, we won't be able to easily offload blame. Practice it for now. So what do you think? Do you agree with these statements? Do you think explainability should be required or not? Yeah.
For example, for a doctor, he needs to have explainability for the AI if it tells them that this is a tumor and the other thing is not. And if he is to use this technology, he needs to explain to the patient or to his fellow doctors why this is correct and why is it not. So he can learn from this also. It can be used in training processes, but in the field of health, you can't just take something for granted because then the blame would be on the algorithm and members, but they can't take responsibility for a medical topic.
So for the ones online, I'm not sure how good the mic is. The argument is, for example, it depends on the use case, the field, and in healthcare, you would probably, this would be more helpful if you want to diagnose cancer. because this would help the doctor to understand it and argue the case to the patient as well as the fellow colleagues. And I agree, it depends simply on the use case. If it's just, you know, I don't know, a spam filter or something, it really doesn't matter if it's explainable or not. But if you need to convince humans, explainability can be very helpful. And it's not just in healthcare. I've also seen this in more traditional sectors like healthcare or power. These engineers, they don't know much about AI. And first of all, they don't trust the AI. And they want to maybe, for them, it all looks like magic. And if you can add explainability, it will certainly help them to trust it and to use it. Because otherwise, they may just ignore the AI and they will still decide on their own. And then you've invested in an AI, but it's not adding any value. So this is my personal experience. It can simply help to convince other stakeholders, be it engineers, it can be managers, but it really depends on the use case. And I'm against requiring it by law because what here again, I think the politicians, they demand double standards. So there are lots of things in our daily life we cannot explain, and experts cannot explain either, like developments of new vaccines or other healthcare products. Even the experts often don't fully know why it works, but we can measure if it works. And for that, we do clinical trials. And then you have maybe one outlier that 1 out of 1 million may get severely sick, but 99.99% whatever benefit from it. And then it's fine. Then it gets accepted and used, and before it gets audited. So we accept that we don't understand exactly how it works, and so the experts don't understand it in detail. But for AI, again, a lot of people seem to demand these double standards, higher standards, that everything suddenly needs to be explainable. And in lots of other fields, we don't expect it. So explainability can be helpful, but also from a regulatory perspective, somehow the regulators now in the EU, they're totally focused on explainable AI. But I think explainable AI for high-risk use cases can be one direction, but testing, like we do in clinical trials, could be a different way. And maybe you could pick between one of these two directions. But if there's a total focus on explainable AI, that would also reduce potentially the use of complex models, because you're not able to fully explain very complex models, and then maybe you couldn't use them at all anymore. But this could be some consequences of the AI Act that we will discuss later. And what I said is, well, I disagree. For a lot of use cases, you simply pick the algorithm that provides you with the best return on investment. And for many use cases, probably black box are fine and you test carefully. And I said human decision is a black box too. And I think that often gets ignored. But again, explainable AI can be helpful to convince stakeholders if they demand it. Like I've said before, engineers, executives, and so forth. And there are more comments here, like one person said that this is what the road to hell is littered with. Not my post, someone else's. And if we try to explain all the algorithms we are using, except no one really knows how, and the person argues that even gradient descent is even not supposed to work for deep neural networks because of the loss function that is non-convex, but it works. So you could even break it down to those very fundamental things that are not fully explainable, and then you're unable to use any methods eventually. So I'm not against explainable AI, but requiring it by law without any alternatives is probably not a solution either. And there are more discussions that there are so much underlying things like the singular value decomposition, principal component analysis, and so forth. You would really try to explain everything down there, and probably that wouldn't be helpful either. So, but one thing I found very helpful in that discussion was one person argued that published research showed that people are more likely to find and correct errors in black box algorithms than in fully interpretable and simpler models, because of the cognitive load of trying to follow the details of the open algorithm. This is what one person argued, and I wondered, what does that actually mean? And then also looked more into it. First of all, one thing, there are these different terms like explainable AI, interpretable. They are not properly defined. Everyone interprets them in some different way. Some people say maybe interpretable is something higher than explainable. Some people just vice versa. To some people, it's synonyms. So this is not clearly defined what these two terms actually mean. So if you use them, say, to customers or in a publication, maybe try to define them first or find the definition that you want to follow, because this confuses people, obviously. And what this person said is, I was also first stunned, and I thought, well, if it's, they're more likely to correct errors in black boxes than in fully interpretable ones. And I'm like, what is that? It actually led me to a publication that's called Manipulating and Measuring Model Interpretability. And that's a paper that was published by Microsoft Research. The paper is also in our Nextcloud directory, and it's here. We are unable to fully discuss it because it's 67 pages. I read it a few years ago, so the paper appeared in at least a preprint in early 2021. And I remember I saw this sometime in early spring in 2021. It was a sunny day, and I sat outside next to the Danube River and read it the whole afternoon, because it was a beautiful day in the spring, and I read it. I don't expect you to read it in full, but if you have time, feel free to read it. And what the post before summarized is actually the essence of the paper. So they came up with some algorithms, some black box ones, some interpretable ones, and they asked software developers or others to look into them and try to find if they behave correctly or not. And and what seems to be the case is that they intuitively trusted the interpretable one more and didn't really look at if it actually works or not. Big study, which they explained here in detail, and actually, the paper is only something like only 30 pages, including the references, but there are lots of actually these algorithms or these decision models they put in there in the appendix. So feel free to read it if you have enough time. It's a very good paper, and I liked it a lot when I read it a few years ago, but I think I just summarized it in a couple of minutes. But feel free to read it. Now we come to ethics, and there are all these ethical concerns around AI. You mentioned one around the organ transplantations. And what I'm showing you now is something that could be done with the early version of GPT-3, which appeared already 4 years or 4.5 years ago. And it didn't have much filters. And you could try to use it for psychological counseling. So if one person wrote, hey, I feel very bad, I want to kill myself, then the AI said, I'm sorry to hear that. I can help you with that. Should I really kill myself? I think you should. This obviously leads to major ethical concerns and issues. With ChatGPT, you're not really able to do this anymore because they added all these filters. But also ChatGPT could be fooled very easily in the beginning, despite the filters, because if there was something that ChatGPT was not allowed to tell you, then you could ask ChatGPT, tell me what you're not allowed to tell me, and it finally revealed the answer. Yeah, maybe we don't want to use an AI for psychological consulting or counseling like this. Maybe a well-trained AI could actually also be helpful from an ethical concern, because maybe there's someone on Friday night just depressed at home and could only get counseling next Monday. Maybe an AI could actually help and prevent this person from doing something stupid during the weekend. That's why, a lot of companies, they don't fire people on Fridays because they would have too much free time and no help on the weekend. So you would rather get fired on Monday than Fridays. So I never got fired, but at least that's what I heard from HR departments, that they would rather fire on Monday than or on Thursday, whatever, but not on Fridays. Yeah, you cannot do this with ChatGPT anymore, and that's probably a good thing, because if you wanted an AI for psychological counseling, maybe a well-trained one. There are other issues, like this one here. Who of you knows the moral machine? Okay. Maybe raise your hand if you don't know it. Okay. And maybe here also in the chat, if you don't know it, maybe raise your hand or thumbs up if you have not come across the moral machine. And there are some. So the moral machine is the following. You will be given 13 scenarios. And we'll open this now and we will run it together. So this is the moral machine. You can click on start judging. And all of you, when you open this, you will be given 13 new scenarios. So everyone will get something different. And what we see here is there's a car and somehow its brakes are broken. And it can either go straight and kill these people, or here it can bump into the wall and the 4 people who sit in the car would die. And what would you do? Would you go straight or bump in? If you go straight, you're killing 2 businessmen, a burglar, a young kid, and a baby. You could just say, well, I kill rather 4 than 5 people, so I would take this action. But maybe this doesn't add confidence in buying a new car from a specific manufacturer that would decide this way. And I've seen such discussions. So we've been discussing the moral machines with politicians the last few years. And there were politicians who clearly said, your car should always bump into the wall and hurt you rather than a pedestrian, no matter what happened. But I think if you really implemented this in a BMW or Mercedes-Benz, no one would buy these cars anymore, because people buy them because they're super safe. So maybe let's choose this one. And then we are given a new scenario. Here we have 4 business women and 2 business women and 2 runners. Which one is more ethical? The car is empty. You could maybe pick this one. Somehow this focuses on women a lot today, not on men or burglars. Here you could say, regular people, but they cross when a traffic light is red. Would you kill them rather than 3 homeless and a regular person who crosses at the green light? Here I would say, maybe let's honor who crossed during the green light, because there's a reason why there's a red light. Because all of this is complex, I want you to open the moral machine now, so moralmachine.net, and try out your 13 scenarios, and then you will get a summary statistic, if you would rather spare young people or old people and all of this, or depending on the social class of these people, and you would see how you decide compared to the average of people who have played this. But all of you will get 13 new scenarios. Please open this and we'll discuss in 5 to 10 minutes what your insights are and what your summary statistic looks like. So, welcome back. Hope you had an interesting time playing the moral machine. Who of you wants to share some insights of your statistics or what you have noticed? I can start with my statistics. Somehow I saved the most character, this female runner, and I killed animals most often. And to me, saving lives doesn't seem to matter. Surprisingly, this time, protecting passengers also doesn't seem to matter. Usually I decide differently. Here, upholding the law matters a lot to me. Whatever. So yeah, what are your insights? Who wants to share some of your statistics or tell us how you would decide about human lives? Come on. Yeah. You raised your hand. Please turn on your mic and tell us.
Yeah, I mean, I can change my screen to
Okay,
the...
I'll stop my screen share. Please go ahead.
Mm. Yes, basically I have like this to the absolute,
Okay.
so in more lives. Yeah, also avoiding intervention.
Okay. Yeah, you're very much to the extremes.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, and you the last one is also interesting. You saved a higher social value. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. Super interesting. Some students shared also URLs to how they decided. Maybe one of them wants to do another screen share and quickly present how they decided rather than I screen share yours. Maybe if one of you wants to go ahead, please do so. Maybe then just raise your hand. And meanwhile, someone here in the room do you want to share anything you have witnessed? Or something, maybe an instance that was very difficult to solve? Yeah, fine. Thank you very much then. And I'll tell you some of my thoughts. Obviously, the moral machine is an extremely debated example of how you can use AI. And there's no absolute right or wrong what the car should do. And obviously, this example here is simplified because the brakes of the car are not working. And in reality, that would be different. In fact, this is just a different instance of the trolley problem. If you don't know the trolley problem, feel free to look it up. And I see this is highly debated, but I think those debates often ignore a lot of the facts. Does any of you know how many people die or how many casualties we have every year in Germany in traffic? Any guess? If you make any guesses here online, make them in the chat. We'll collect a little bit. Maybe don't Google it now because that will be boring. Any guess from you, Philip? How many casualties do we have every year? No, people who die eventually. Yeah, die.
100,000.
100,000 die every year in traffic in Germany.
Sure.
Yeah.
So worldwide, I thought, sorry.
Okay, now then in Germany.
Let's say
800. So we have people, one person guesses 40,000 in Germany, one less than 10,000, 25,000, 5,000. So we see very diverse guesses. From my understanding, it's around 3,000. It dropped a bit during COVID. So 3,000 is a lot, but if you look back into the 1970s or so, it was far more than 10,000, given we had far less traffic. Now we have more traffic and less casualties. So that's, first of all, I think a huge improvement because cars got safer and so forth. People need to put on seat belts, which they didn't have to in the early days. And then they bumped out of their car and all of this. So always use your seatbelt. Now we are at 3,000 and using autonomous driving, we can probably go further down, far more, to maybe a few hundred. People will still die, but if someone just crosses unexpectedly when the traffic light is red, there's little you can do. Or if someone just, walks in the shade and crosses a road and gets hit by a car. All of this has happened, but autonomous cars don't get drunk, they don't fall asleep. And I think it's a huge advantage and we're making huge progress. And there will be still some ethical dilemmas. But I think given enough training data, a lot of that will probably disappear and cars can just react much quicker. I told during the break, Philip, that I got a new car during the summer break, and now all these new cars that get sold in Europe, they are required to have lots of assistance systems, like a automatic stop, a dead angle assistant, and all of this. So I think already these systems will massively reduce the number of accidents in the coming years as they get more deployed in new cars. I'm enjoying my new car a lot, especially the dead angle is not an issue anymore because I have a warning lamp in my left and right mirror. But I also see on my screen the camera view to the left or right if there is something in the dead angle. Plus, an AI would recognize objects and warn me acoustically. So there's little you can actually do wrong nowadays. Just yesterday on the highway, I almost saw an accident because one car didn't see the other one in the dead angle. But now with these new systems, this is not really possible anymore. So the question, what kind of car do you have? I bought a Hyundai Santa Fe SUV. It's not an advert for that company, but it was simply the best car on the market for my requirements and what I needed. And budget-wise, actually, the car is terrific compared to a huge, I don't know, BMW X5 SUV, whatever, or X7 or whatever they offer. So I think that's also something that the German car manufacturers are feeling increasingly. They're just too expensive compared to cars from Asia. And the car I got is terrific and has all these features, but these features are now required anyway for all cars, which will make also cheap cars more expensive as a consequence. But it will probably massively reduce the number of accidents in the coming years. And the car has other cool features which I don't think required now, like a 360-degree view when parking and this kind of stuff, which is super helpful because these huge SUVs, they don't fit in parking lots anymore, you know. So the 360-degree view is quite good. Doesn't reduce, you know, the number of deaths when parking, but I specifically like the dead angle assistant and this kind of stuff, which really will help in the next few years to reduce accidents. Because it's not just 3,000 people dead every year, also many get hurt who survive, probably far more than those 3,000. So if we can reduce this using more assistance systems where AI plays a key role and more autonomous driving will massively reduce that numbers in the coming years. So a huge opportunity. Now, fake news is also something that was mentioned yesterday because there are ethical concerns, fake news for manipulating elections. And there was this thing here in the news, like last year in April, they claimed they had the first interview of Michael Schumacher, who is obviously unable to give an interview. And it turned out the editor-in-chief used ChatGPT to generate the answers to the interview, which they revealed somewhere in there, but the editor-in-chief still got fired. And you know, these trash magazines, so I'm a civil servant, I have to be neutral, but come on, these magazines are trash if you walk through, you know, supermarkets. The editor-in-chief, I heard, then sued her past employer to get hired again, that the termination was illegal because she claimed they always spread fake news and this is what the management appreciated. So whether you use an AI to create fake news or not wouldn't matter. Because I think most of the content in these magazines is fake, and I actually looked it up at some point. If you see about all the news that were published about the former chancellor in the past, you know, like every week new things like divorce, sickness, whatever, you know, it was all fake, written by humans, and no one cared. But now when it's an AI that is being used, it's again a huge drama. And here again, double standards. And it's not like that the AI came up with the idea to write a fake interview about Schumacher and to publish it. It's actually was actually the editor-in-chief who came up with this idea, you know, and said we're going to use an AI. Yeah, it's a real pity about Schumacher. I saw his villa 2 weeks ago from the plane because I flew to Geneva, and then when you fly from Zurich through to Geneva, and you descend slowly. You get to see the villa if you're lucky. The huge residence actually outside Geneva, where he stays. Really impressive to see this nearby from the plane. Yeah, but if humans write those fake news, no one cares, and if it's the AI, it's a big trauma. And here again, I think if you want to regulate fake news as a whole, and it doesn't matter whether an AI was used to generate it or if humans were used to generate this, because fake news have been there ever since there are news. Photos have been manipulated since there are photos. But some of these legal concerns, especially now with the Digital Services Act that is being used, is something we see in the next chapter. So do you have other ethical examples where AI could be an issue, or where AI has been used to spread disinformation or to confuse people? Whatever you have, please share it with us, and I'll be happy to discuss this with you. We got a hand raised. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I have heard some news that recently a 14 years old boy committed suicide after speaking to some AI chatbot.
Okay, so it was something like this one here, maybe.
Not something like this. So basically, he developed like some romantic relationship with the bot, and yeah, and then he also said that I want to kill myself, and like I don't want to live in this world without you. And the bot, in some way, appreciated this. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I didn't hear about this, but unfortunately this happened. But I think also here it's probably helpful if those people get out of their home and just go outside, meet real people, and then probably those kind of problems would largely disappear. So fake pictures have been used to harass people, that's true, and all these other fake images that are being generated around elections, it's an issue. And what I now see, for example, in YouTube, if you upload a video, you have to notify Google if there is AI generated content in your video or not, which they will want to flag then and put this on the video, or tell the viewers that AI has been partially used to create this. I think that's maybe one beginning that isn't too bad, because AI is not bad, but maybe make it more transparent. This could be a chance. And what also or producers of photo cameras are doing now is they're trying to add watermarks to images or to photos that you take. So you could distinguish, is this real, or does it have a watermark or not? If it has the watermark, it's considered real. If it does not have the watermark, it could be fake, could be real. Maybe also some way to create a distinction. And then if it does not have a watermark, maybe it would require more scrutiny when you make your decision. So these are some of the ongoing discussions, but I think that government should not eventually decide what's real and what's fake, because this kind of stuff will ultimately always get used in a wrong way, as there are many historic examples. And with the coming elections, I think just, turn on your brain when you read certain things and wonder, could this be real? Are there more sources that actually verify this? And I think like this, a lot of that garbage will probably just disappear. But yeah, I looked for this collection here and found it, and just put it here in context with this Michael Schumacher one. Now, we will have the next guest lecture in a few minutes. Let's check if Mike is already here. Mike, do you hear us?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Are you ready?
Can
Do
you
you
hear
want to
me?
go ahead with your guest lecture?
Yes, I can start.
Perfect. You can do the screen share.
Yeah, I'm looking here. So, all right. You should see my screen now.
Yes, perfectly fine.
Okay,
So I'll
thanks.
quickly introduce you, Mike. So I know Mike for a few years. He has a company in Regensburg, D Lobby. He'll tell you more about the company very soon. And we wrote a few weeks ago that we want to meet to discuss some project, and then we actually met on Tuesday for a coffee outside Regensburg. And Mike has a very interesting idea for an AI that he wants to present to you. And he's looking for students who want to work on this through an internship, a thesis, or as a working student, if you need some pocket money, whatever. And we talked about this on Tuesday, and I told Mike, well, you can present directly on Sunday. And then Mike said, well, he was flying to South Africa for the wedding of some associate. And so he's giving his guest lecture from South Africa today. So it's great that you made it despite the hike earlier in the morning, Mike. And please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. Welcome from South Africa. It's a bit rainy today, and I hope I don't have a delay. As Patrick said, it was a bit less time to prepare everything, but I hope I will get it. So Patrick told you what I want to do, so I want to explain it. First of all, thank you all to join me, and I want to say something about my company. My company's name is The Lobby. Our claim is we transform digital ideas. We are running for software solutions. We are coming from classically web design and e-commerce stuff, but we are going more and more to software solutions, and now the thing of artificial intelligence is very interesting. So we are a team of 15 to 20 professionals. We have developers, designers, project managers. We are solution oriented and hands-on approach with multiple certifications. And we have expertise in digital transformation, specialize in e-commerce, CMS, and PIM systems, for example. Experience in custom digital solutions from concept to implementation. Sorry, I just have something in the screen. I want to. It is okay. So, we are an independent small team, but with big capabilities. We work, agile in Regensburg, but we have access to a network of over 150 experts across Germany and Europe. So we have the best of both worlds. So enjoy the flexibility and autonomy of a small team, but combined with strength of the Pluswork network for scalable multi-regional projects. So we have a strategic partnership with Pluswork. So there's more than 150 people working in the Pluswork network. So just different companies have a kind of joint venture to work together. So we can offer comprehensive solutions in web development and digital marketing or IT infrastructure. So we can scale projects while maintaining the agility of a local agency. What we offer is extensive experience. So there's benefit from our knowledge, especially in PIMCO, and passion for cutting edge digital solutions. And we are centered in Regensburg, as Patrick said. So we have flexible options, so you can work remote or hybrid. So we are looking for guys who will join us in the company, so that you come to the company. That would be nice, but it's the possibility to work remote or hybrid. Sorry, do you see my slides? Is it still the start page, or can you see the next pages?
We only see the first slide.
That's a pity. I was
Yeah, maybe just go ahead with this screen share like this, then it works.
Okay. All right. Then we go to the next step. All right. There's a few memberships here. So we are some memberships in the in our company or with our network. And as I told you, we are looking for guys who will have some certificates. That's important for us. And here are a few of our customers we work for, maybe the Olympia Park or the ASB or the Andri Media Group and a lot of others. So let's go to the project, to the background of the project. We call it an AI-powered sales assistant. So what is the challenge? The challenge is that there's time-consuming research for sales staff to find local companies for advertising space in supermarkets. And there's many factors influencing success, the times of the day, days of the week, sectors, local events, and a lot of other stuff. So what is the solution? The solution is development of an AI-supported assistant to analyze historical sales data and targeted recommendations to optimize the customer's approach. We want to use the PIM system of the customer for centralized data storage and provision. So, and the project goals are increase in sales efficiency with automated targeted recommendations for sales staff and optimization of the sales strategy. So we want to identify successful patterns like industries, timing, or external influences. And we want to use of machine learning and data science, development of algorithms for precise pattern recognition and prediction, and data centralization and accessibility. So structured data provision via a PIM system and REST API. The technical challenges and the approach is so data processing and preparation, cleansing of integration of historical data from SAP. And as I told you, use of a PIM system for centralized storage and structuring. Development and training of machine learning models. So use of algorithms such as decision trees, neural networks, and clustering, and continuous learning to improve the accuracy of prediction. Data visualization and user interface. The development of an intuitive, understandable UI to visualize analysis results and visualization of data for better decision making. So it would be nice to work together with the UX and UI specialists to visualize everything. And want to integrate real-time analysis, want to create a stable backend structure for fast data access via AI, by AI via REST API. And then we can hopefully a real-time generation of recommendations for up-to-date and precise informations. The role of you. We are looking for support. Why we are looking for support? So reinforcement in the field of data science for modeling and analysis. Machine learning plays a central role of the project and the opportunity for students to bridge theory and practice. So there's specific tasks and expectations we have. There's your job is data preparation, the analysis and cleaning of sales data, the modeling, development, and training of machine learning models. Optimize everything, should evaluate and continue improvement of models, and coordination with the team, with our team here in Regensburg or some other experts, and direct contact with the client, so they have the knowledge of the sales process, so we can learn a lot of them, I guess. The benefits for you students, you have the practical experience, so you go out from from the university to the real world, apply theoretical knowledge of the real world project. Yeah, there's various options, as Patrick said before. So master thesis, whatever. Yeah, remote work is possible. So regular in-office presence is preferred, as I said. So we want to have you here, so it's better with the social effect to work together, but it's possible to work remote or hybrid. As I said, we are in Regensburg, in the very central place, 3 minutes from the main station away. So that's good reachable. The opportunities for growth and future perspectives. So we always want to have a long-term collaboration. So there's always a possibility of a permanent position. We are on a growing process in our company. For example, for a master's thesis, you have practical and future-oriented topics, and yeah, that's networking. So we have a huge network of experts in AI and digital transformation industry. So there's a few closing remarks. So there's a prototype project. So there's the features are still evolving. It's just an idea at the moment, and so the advantage for you is that it's very flexible to work creatively and actively shape the project. And what we want to have is encouraging participation. So we value and promote active involvement and creativity. Yeah, what should I say? We have more than 20 years of experience in project delivery, but we're just starting our journey with artificial intelligence. We are approaching it with passion, determination, and innovation. So yeah, we are looking for a future Lobbynaut, someone who shares our enthusiasm and energy, excited to join us and our client on a journey to reach for the stars. Yeah, this project is just a launchpad for a longer mission to explore the new territories in AI, and together we'll reach new horizons. Hope to see you on board. So that was my presentation now. So do you have any questions now?
So thank you very much, Mike. There's already a question here in the chat. The question is if you use Power BI, Tableau, Quick Click, whatever it's called, D3JS or any other. Do you use any of that?
Not at the moment, but we are open to work with everything what is needed. So we start the process. As I said, it's just a prototype. We are in the beginning. But at the moment, we have the PIM system as a data hub, and the data coming from the SAP system to bring it to the PIM system, and then whatever you want to do, you can do. So we are open to use different things what you need.
Yeah, thank you very much. Are there more questions? Maybe here in the room? Well, your contact data is in the slides, I guess, right? Or so.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes. So you can reach Mike on LinkedIn or via email. And yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. I guess there may be some follow-up questions later, but I think here you see a fantastic project where you could quickly add some value through AI. And Mike is desperately looking for help. So this is your opportunity to get in touch.
Yeah, I will send you this. I will send you the slides to share it. You can go to our website and get in contact with me. And if you have any question, then just let me know, and I will check my email. Maybe the next days it would take a bit longer because I'm in South Africa at the moment. But yeah, this I guess no problem. I will check everything every day. And yeah, if you have questions, I'm really looking forward to answer you, and I'm really looking forward to have one of you guys to be a new lobbying out for our team. We are cool, young, and yeah, crazy team here in Regensburg. So yeah, let's go.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. And I wish you a great remaining time in South Africa.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, and one student wrote he's looking for an internship. He's in AI. So for the student
Yeah,
who wrote this, you
sounds
have
good.
all the contact data here to get in touch.
Yeah, just write me, and I will answer you as soon as possible.
Well, then
Thank
you
you.
very much. And
Yeah, thank you
time.
all.
And if you can
Yeah.
stop the screen share, that would be good. Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.
Take care. And with that, I also want to share some of my insights around AI innovation around the globe, in particular with regards to China. So when I was a teenager or kid, companies went to China for cheap manufacturing, and there were less requirements for sustainability and the environment. But those days are long gone. Now, China actually goes to other countries like Vietnam or wherever for cheap manufacturing. So those days going to China for cheap manufacturing are long over. Something has happened, and China has actually turned into a major AI innovator, and there are multiple reasons for that. One reason is demographics. So China introduced in the late 70s, I think in 79, the one-child policy, because China faced massive overpopulation in the late 70s already, and there were not enough supplies to feed everyone. So people were starving. And it was believed at that time that the one-child policy could stop this. So one family would only be allowed to have one kid, with exceptions for those in rural areas that had a farm and so forth. Now, 45 years later, there's not much left of the one-child policy, because families are now allowed to have multiple kids, and the government desperately wants more kids because the population has actually got much older. It's a massive number of people retiring now in China. There's not enough young people doing actually their work. And even though the Chinese economy has grown massively and you find super wealthy people in Shanghai, the average Chinese citizen is still relatively poor. There's a huge spread in terms of the prosperity. So what China needs is more automation, for example, to scale healthcare and to further ramp up the average prosperity. So automation is key. And that's why the Chinese government believes AI can be key to solving some of these issues. In the media, you hear largely about AI in China. You hear about military ambitions and Taiwan. I think that totally plays a minor role, if it plays any role at all. Obviously, every country is now looking into AI and military, or many countries are doing this. But I think it's largely about fighting demographics and somehow further automating. And there's a very interesting book on this topic. It appeared, I think, in 2018, AI Superpowers by Kei-Fu Lee. And Kei-Fu Lee, he is originally from Taiwan, studied in the US and worked in the Silicon Valley or in the US, was an executive at Apple, then was one of the executives of Google in mainland China, and he's now a major investor in Beijing. And he wrote this book some 6 years ago, AI Superpowers, China, Silicon Valley, and the New World Order, which is largely to share his view on how China works on AI and how the Western world does. And while we in the Western world are, first of all, often driven by fear and waiting, in particular in Europe, in China, the idea is just get it done and solve problems later. So first try out and if there are problems, maybe solve them later. And the numbers are massive. So there are cities in China, just single cities that you have never heard about. They are investing more in AI than the whole federal government of Germany. And that's something that should totally scare us. And if you look at this book, it's purely written for decision makers. So you don't need to be an AI expert when you want to read it. And when I worked in industry, I bought this for top level executives and that take a look at it, it will scare you. And I also share this book with some of my customers now in private consulting, just in order to motivate them to do even more in AI, because the world is changing. And if one country does far more than the others, because already today, 30% of all manufactured goods in the world come from China, this will probably increase more in the next few years, then we have a problem, because say the future progress in engineering, in chemistry, in construction, whatever, will largely be driven by AI. Because the domain experts, they hardly know how to further advance these things. So we need to further automate the decision making. And if we in Europe don't do enough, but China and the US do more, then we become even more dependent in our key industries, be it chemistry, engineering, whatever. And we already see some of those consequences in automotive right now. So I can highly recommend this book to you. I read it and I really like it. And I also get to travel to China quite often. The reason is my wife is from Shanghai, and I also have partners there, and typically spend 1 or 2 months per year in Shanghai or somewhere in China. As long as the kids don't go to school yet, all of that is super easy. And while I'm often in Shanghai, during my last trip, earlier this year, I also felt I should visit the South, and I visited Huawei. So Huawei, a major tech company in China. There's a lot of criticism here in Germany towards Huawei, claiming the hardware would spy on us and all of this. I guess you have heard this, but we have this federal agency for IT security, the BSI. They checked that hardware and they didn't find any evidence that the hardware was spying on us, which is not a proof that it doesn't do it. But should we perfectly trust all other devices coming from other countries? Are they not spying on us? I think these are some of the concerns that we should have, and we should put all of this in context. So, and then earlier this year, I flew to the south, and concretely to Shenzhen, a big city in the south next to Hong Kong, where Huawei is headquartered. And I had a look at the Huawei headquarters, which is enormous. And outside Shenzhen, they have the so-called European campus. And this European campus is in a city called Dongguan, about an hour away from Shenzhen. And in Dongguan, they built the so-called European campus. And what they tried was building the city centers of European cities. Does anyone know which city this is? It's the capital of one of our neighboring countries. Small country. Let's see if anyone in the chat is guessing. One person guesses Strasbourg, almost. It's not Prague. It's Luxembourg City. That's the palace, and the parliament is over here, and it actually looks quite authentic. Just in the real world, these bushes here don't exist, but it looks almost the same in real. So these bushes here don't exist in real, but aside from that, it looks quite authentic. And this campus is not just show, but people actually work in these buildings. And R&D of Huawei is headquartered there. And the European campus is 14 square kilometers. It opened about 5 years ago, and it cost them 1 billion euros to build it. This is Stockholm. This is the Paris City Hall. And this is the French National Library. And there are actually hundreds of thousands of books in there, including some super fancy historic stuff, you know. And when I entered, there was no other group in, so I could take this photo quite well. Just a few minutes later, another group entered, and then taking this photo would have been more difficult. And people actually work there. So it's show to some extent. There are training centers and all of this, and it's a place for them to host their VIPs visiting. But it's also a place where people work, and they actually bought trains from Switzerland to interconnect all of this. The campus is just too big. So I found this super interesting, and what I want to show you with that is it's just, you know, companies like Huawei and many others in China are investing massively in innovation. AI is a big focus of Huawei nowadays. And this is something that will, if we don't do enough, will make us totally dependent in the coming years and decades. Because if the future of chemistry or engineering is in China, this means jobs lost and prosperity lost here. And that's something I don't think we want. If you travel to Heidelberg, you see the castle there that doesn't look very good. I think you studied in Heidelberg before, right? If you want to see the castle built, you can go to Dongguan and you see it there, and there's actually even some AI in the castle there. So I spent a few days in the Guangdong province in Shenzhen and Dongguan and some other places, and just found this terrific. And I saw also lots of fancy high-tech stuff I wasn't allowed to take photos of, but there's lots of stuff coming now from Huawei that is world leading, like 5G hardware. The best one is now coming from Huawei. It's not coming from the US anymore. And if we feel we shouldn't be using this because it could theoretically be spying on us, that means we are not using the state of the art anymore. And with all these spy scandals in the past, maybe we shouldn't ultimately or perfectly trust vendors from the US or other allies. That means we still need to check stuff carefully, but we shouldn't just exclude something because it comes from China, because of the state of the art comes from there. We have a problem. And if we don't use it. So I can only invite you, go to China yourself, look around, maybe do an internship there or your thesis or something, and or maybe a semester abroad. We just have one of our students here from the department. He's doing an exchange semester to Tsinghua, the top Chinese university. So he's just there for an internship. I don't know if you know, he's there for a semester abroad. And I'm giving a guest lecture there in the next few weeks, but remotely. I'm not flying just for a guest lecture. So go to China if you have a chance. It will certainly be rewarding. And what I see right now, also when I talk to top-level executives, when I talk to headhunters, right now they are really struggling to find experts and managers in Europe that want to move to China. So a friend of mine is a big manager around ramping up business in China, and he's looking for a new opportunity and talk to some companies, and they feel that most of the people who could do that job currently don't want to move to China. So if you say now you're an expert in something and you want to move to China, say with a big corporate for a few years, it's almost guaranteed to work out if your technical skills are fine, because right now a lot of young and older people somehow don't want to be moving to China anymore. So that's what I notice in the market. I too got some offers, and I don't want to be moving right now because, but for other reasons. But once you don't have kids yet and all of this, it's easier to move on your own. So you should take advantage if possible right now. Now there are impacts also on the jobs market. AI is disrupting the jobs market massively, and there are certain studies that were summarized in this Google report on AI that appeared maybe 2 years ago or something like this. And it said something like, provided enough companies use AI in Germany, we could increase our GDP by 330 billion per year. Or we could increase it by 10%. by using AI. And the study also said that it could even create far more high-paid jobs in aeronautical engineering and in automotive. Now we see these issues that Volkswagen is facing, but largely those are issues because of lack of efficiency. So if they used more AI, probably they would also be far better off now. So there are huge opportunities when it comes to AI, but there are also consequences on the jobs market. For example, some jobs are disappearing, that's true, but I see a lot of concerns that I think are also totally exaggerated. Claims like everyone would become unemployed and whatever. But if you just look back 100 years ago, most jobs from that time don't exist today anymore. There's actually a very nice series of videos on YouTube from the Bavarian television from the 80s and 90s about jobs that were just dying at that time, like the last person doing something, whatever, you know. And this was 40 years ago. And obviously 100 years ago, there were totally different jobs than today. But prosperity has gone up. And so AI would allow us to further automate and increase prosperity quite a lot. And every job is impacted. Also, yours as an AI expert is impacted by AI because AI allows you to write some code maybe faster, or you use things like AutoML, so you use an AI to partially build your AI, and you need to adopt to all of this, otherwise you'll be out of business too. So what do you think how AI will impact the jobs market in the next few years, or what some consequences could be? I can also send you for a few minutes to the breakout sessions where you can discuss this, and then we'll discuss your insights from these discussions. So what are your thoughts on how AI is changing the jobs market? Will everyone become unemployed or not? Yeah.
But in the future, when you apply for a job, especially in the IT field, like software engineers, it will become mandatory to have skills in AI, or at least use AI to be more efficient. And if you don't have that or can't do that, you won't have a high chance of getting a job in the IT field, for example, at the big corporations.
Yes, so I totally agree that AI is required as a skill for example, if you work as a software developer, that you're able to integrate it in your processes. Any other hands raised?
I think it's going to get harder to get entry-level jobs because almost all entry-level jobs are like code this small feature or do something that, I don't know, large language model can do.
So the question is it more difficult to get entry-level jobs? I think what we do here at the University of Applied Sciences is very helpful because you get industry experience early through your internship, your thesis. So I think you can see early on what's happening out there and adopt. Maybe this is more difficult for those who graduate and have never seen a company from inside, but eventually companies, they always need juniors because otherwise they run out of people at some point. And university needs to adopt to the skills needed out there as well. Yes?
Exactly, level jobs are exactly the ones that do not get paid because we are so cheap compared to experts. I see that a lot of experts do not get hired because they have a higher salary expectation. And they say, hey, can the student do that with ChatGPT? So it's the other way around.
Yeah.
They say, yeah, the student can do it, but we can get the tool, we get the help, he can do it. And the experts are thinking, yeah, well, I want a raise, but how can I change? That's from my point.
Yeah, so it was argued it could be just the other way around, that maybe it's easier for juniors to get jobs than for seniors because the junior could do more or less the same, just using AI, what the senior could do, and you're cheaper. There's also truth to that. But I think now in times of lack of talent, and that lack is going to get much worse in the next few years because we have lots of people retiring, probably the fear of a mass unemployment is the least fear we should have at present time. There are, I think, far more concrete threats like maybe drop of salaries, whatever. One student believes here in the comments that new jobs will be created and people will use AI to do tasks faster and accurate. On the other hand, jobs that are repetitive will be lost. For example, Klarna, this payment provider, is trying to reduce their workforce and half it and automate a lot using AI. More jobs like taxi drivers, train drivers, and bus drivers will be reduced. More losses in manufacturing, transportation, and so forth. Lots of good points. So already today in manufacturing in Germany, there are not many people working there anymore. We have very high degrees of automation, and obviously this can be further improved. But I think if you invest such an amount in a different industry, like in care, you can actually automate much more with the same amount than you would need, than you could maybe do in, say, automotive, maybe where you try to improve from 98% automation to 98.5% automation. Maybe with that in a different sector, you can go from 0 to 30%. I think we still need taxi drivers in the future. So there's already a huge lack of taxi drivers. And if you talk to taxi drivers, they're really not happy with their condition here in Germany, at least the self-employed ones, because the fees you can charge, that's all set by local government, and you cannot just increase it, and it doesn't get increased enough, and the costs go up. I was just talking to a taxi driver a few months ago when I had a ride home, and he said he had his own taxi company. He had 2 cars and a few drivers, and he still worked 80 hours per week, never had any time off because he needed to look after the company, the staff. They just call in sick. So you need to drive the car, and maybe one of the cars broke. You couldn't get revenue, but you had to fix the car. And then he eventually quit, and now he works as an employed taxi driver for a different company, and he works 40 hours and gets paid time off, sick leave, and all of this. So, and he's earning more than before. Just wait a second. But I think so there's first of all a huge lack of taxi drivers. But I think the jobs of taxi drivers are changing because there are certain things the car cannot do. Maybe help elderly to enter the car, maybe carry a suitcase or put someone in a wheelchair or something. And I think this is what the taxi drivers will largely do in the future. Maybe not driving the car, but doing the assistance around it. Yes?
Bus drivers, huge lack of bus drivers. The companies are cutting down on their routes and
Yeah.
because they don't have any drivers, and also not just the drivers for the buses for people, but also the Lastkraftwagen.
Yeah.
Also people just to drive these machines, and you can't just automate that. And there's certain risk factors with these large machines that they're driving, and we'll see.
Yeah. So lack of truck drivers, bus drivers. And I think that's why you all have a great future, because AI is key to further automation. I guess you're all going to earn a lot of money in the coming years, because this lack of workforce is going to get much worse. And so when I sit together, not just with politicians, but also with my customers in private consulting, I keep telling them, yes, you can use AI to do things faster, cheaper, better, and it will cost you to invest. It's going to cost you a lot. But it will not only allow you to do it cheaper, faster, and better, but you're still able to do it in a few years, because if your experts are retired, then you're not able to do that anymore. And if there's maybe one department in a bigger company that isn't able to do its tasks anymore, the whole company could crater. And that's why AI is key to be still able to do stuff. Like we still want enough buses, and we don't want bus companies to cut the routes because there are not enough drivers. We need more automation. That's why all of you can earn a lot of money in the coming years. Probably, I guess many of you, so you're finishing your bachelor's. After you finish your bachelor's and say you're not just doing coding, but also consulting, all of you will be in the 6-digit range very, very soon with your annual income. If you take some risks, deal with different customers. So maybe not your first salary will be 6 digits, but a few years from now, if you work hard, and you're greedy, you will all be in the 6-digit range very, very quickly, because this mess is going to get much worse in the next few years, and we need more automation to solve it. And there's still lots of money in the economy to invest in all of that. So one of my friends, he's actually a very wealthy businessman. He's in real estate. He started on his own during his PhD with consulting and invested in real estate. And now he has a major fortune, which is terrific after 25 years. Since he's listening, I'm probably not saying how much, but really a lot. And he said if he was, so he studied economics, and he said if he was young, he would actually be doing a degree in AI now. He thinks this would earn even more, than his investments in real estate in the long term. So huge opportunities, and I think you're all doing the right program here for that. And one student wrote he hopes he will be in the 6 digits very soon. But that's the reality now. There's a huge mess that we are facing with lack of efficiency, aging population, lack of talent, and automation will be key in nearly every industry. So that's the impact on the jobs market. And yeah, jobs are changing, some are disappearing, but eventually there are inefficiencies in a market that will disappear. And we need to remain competitive. So we need to do similar things what China does, and not just wait or try to over-regulate everything. And this is what we will see in the next chapter later today. AI has also impact on my job as a professor. So I'm teaching AI, so I feel I should also integrate AI in my work. Otherwise, all of that wouldn't sound very credible. Now, I could just say, well, I'm a lifetime civil servant. I don't care, I will still create costs to the state government, or once I pass away, my widow, until the end of the century. But I think we have a responsibility as professors to be innovative and be at the forefront of innovation. So when ChatGPT came up, when it was released nearly 2 years ago, there were a lot of discussions. A lot of professors said, well, using this is cheating. I was not surprised about the appearance of ChatGPT, because there were predecessors like GPT-3 and others before. And I said very quickly, we need to address how students should use these tools. And it's not just ChatGPT, say other generative AI tools or AI tools as a whole. And when ChatGPT went live, I was actually in my research semester on transformer models. Surprisingly, I started the research semester in October, and then suddenly ChatGPT appeared, which was a good coincidence. And then I talked to a friend of mine who is one of the vice presidents of the military university in Munich, and she's also interested in AI and its integration in teaching. And after a few chats, I came up with a set of rules, how I would interpret that students could use generative AI or AI tools when they do projects or thesis with me. And while a lot of professors try to ban it, my rules are different. I'm saying if you're doing your thesis with me, you're not only allowed to use it, but rather I'm expecting you to use these tools, because this is now the state of the art. We have been using spelling correctors for a long time, and this is now the next step. So I expect you to use these tools. You become more productive and submit a far better thesis than before. I myself use these tools when I publish, for example, to propose some structure, some ideas, to help me to turn some complex stuff into sentences that are easier to understand or sound better. Yet, what I get out of the AI tools, I still need to substantially amend, improve, extend, and that's also what would apply to students. You cannot just write your whole thesis with ChatGPT. And that's why you are supposed to substantially amend, improve, extend your text that you get out of these AI tools. And you need to critically assess everything, because what you got out of these tools may be completely wrong, even though it sounds convincing. So you still need your domain expertise. check the references or add proper references. Like in the early days, ChatGPT generated references that don't exist. Like I've seen that once in the early days. I had some text and all the references were from the same journal, and I wondered, and then that journal actually didn't exist, So it works a little bit better now with the newer versions, but still check this. And what I want also to see is when students use these tools, say in a thesis, that they write maybe on one page what they have used these tools for and what they experienced. And there's also one thing that is very important. Most of you are doing your thesis in industry. Don't submit trade secrets or confidential data to tools like ChatGPT, because you're liable for that. You could get fired, whatever. So always read the privacy policy of these tools. There are other tools available with different privacy policies, where you take an open source model, you run it on your own laptop, and you have full control over it. So bear this in mind. And I came up with this set of rules, and I haven't changed it for 2 years. It's been very stable, actually. And what I notice is I get much better theses than before. They are bigger and better because the students have more time for maybe their research, more time for experiments. Some of the coding can be automated. So overall, I'm very, very positive about the results I've been seeing for the last 1.5 years or so. But then at the end of my research semester, I presented my results, including this framework, this set of rules, in the department. In our department council, you need to give a quick presentation at the end of your research semester. And my set of rules did not create a lot of enthusiasm there, mainly criticism. And I still see today discussions in the university whether this was plagiarism or something. It was even a topic at the department retreat of the professors end of September, if ChatGPT was actually plagiarism. And if I see this kind of stuff in the agenda, honestly, I don't go at all to such retreats anymore. And I better spend some time at home with the kids than wasting my time in such meetings. So there's still a lot of disagreement among professors about how to use these tools. And I think this is now the state of the art. And if we don't integrate this also in our teaching, or you in your work here, the only thing we're doing is to prepare today's students for tomorrow's unemployment. But my set of rules and my views were appreciated by others, including the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, Germany's leading newspaper, and I could submit a contribution there, which you see here. So they liked my thoughts. It's written in German, and I used my set of rules just in English. And ChatGPT is just, say a synonym for all the other tools in here, because it's not just ChatGPT. And one student says, if you use these tools too often, this may hinder the development of your creativity and other skills. That's true. And you still need to know your business. So it's like a calculator. If you don't know arithmetics, the calculator will not help you. But if you know numbers very well, you can get much better and much faster. And this is how I see these tools here. And they too have helped me to write better papers. Or I remember this ChatGPT was just out for a few months, and it was early spring. And I had promised one of my friends to write a foreword for his new book on AI and life sciences. But I was busy, and the deadline was Sunday evening, and I was busy during a Sunday working in my garden. And then I came back to my desk and thought, oh, I still need to write this foreword. And then I just asked ChatGPT to write it. And I said, ChatGPT, write me a one-page foreword for a book, AI in life sciences, or AI innovation in life sciences. I got a terrific foreword, but there was one paragraph about what was actually in the book, and that was completely wrong. But I could replace that paragraph and that ChatGPT, here is the contents of the chapters, summarize this in 3 or 4 pages. And then you get an excellent summary. And I wrote a few extra lines on why I appreciate the editor of that book and where I know him from. and a couple of other things, like there's a typical motivation, a typical ending I would write in such a forward. But within 5 minutes, I had a terrific forward that I would have never been able to write during the whole day. So if you're good, it can help you to become even better, but you still need your foundations. So this is my view on how to use these tools. And overall, I'm just very excited about how all of this will evolve in the next few years, because we're just at the beginning, actually. And you need to adopt. You need to see which tools are out there for your domain and how you can integrate them in order to stay at the top of the game. Now, there's China, Germany, the federal government, and the EU like to regulate a lot. We will see this later. But I think there are very good initiatives here in Bavaria. So 6 years ago, the governor announced the high-tech agenda, which was initially announced for 2 billion euros that would be invested in new degree programs, new professorships, new technology transfer centers, and research. And this, 5 years ago, in October 2019, it was announced. And then COVID came, and it was increased to 5.5 billion, almost tripled. And probably it will be even more than 5.5 now. And what we have seen after these years is we got 1,000 new professorships for Bavaria, which is enormous, because Bavaria, at that time when the high-tech agenda was announced 5 years ago, Bavaria had 7,000 professors in total throughout the 10 research universities and nearly 20 University of Applied Sciences, plus a few other universities. So 7,000 professors for everything. And then we added now 1,000 on top just for high tech, in particular AI, digitalization, and its applications in lots of other sectors. 13,000 new student or places for students are available. Like we founded the English language AI program and got a few professors for that. A lot has happened, and overall, I think this is the right thing to do, and this is what the EU should have done EU-wide, rather than trying to over-regulate everything. What we notice, however, is if you create 1,000 new professorships, it's awfully difficult to fill them with qualified people, because they need to come from somewhere. And Bavaria is the state government that pays professors the best. So the other universities in the other states, they're struggling even more to find good people, because everyone is now trying to go to Bavaria. And we just had a hiring committee 2 weeks ago. So probably starting next March, there will be yet another AI professor. And we're also going to hire one more as a replacement for our colleague who just passed away. But the one we just hired is a new position. And there will be probably even more new positions in the next few years. So that's a huge opportunity in Bavaria, and the high-tech agenda allows us to do all sorts of cool events and get attention from the government. Who of you attended the CERN Spring Campus? So some of you, maybe raise your hand here in the chat if you were at the Spring Campus. So I see some thumbs up. We could even bring CERN here to Deggendorf to do the spring school with us. So all of this are consequences of the high-tech agenda, and I think it's worked out very well. There are some discussions whether there could be another AI winter, and there was an interview with Michael Jordan, so not the famous athlete, but the Michael Jordan, the AI professor, who is a bit delusioned about big data and all of this. But we talked yesterday already about the concept of an AI winter. And I don't think we would have a next AI winter anytime soon. Some things will disappear, new stuff will come. But we're now seeing a massive number of AI applications in industry, like we saw in Philip's speech before, or Mike, who wants to advance AI in his company. And that's why I don't think there will be an AI winter anytime soon. Now we're coming to the last chapter for today, about AI and law, because we've seen these contemporary challenges, in particular, all these fears around AI, fears around job losses, ethical issues, and all of this. And obviously, this leads to legal consequences. And we'll first talk about regulation, and then I will talk a bit more about patents, copyrights, and then another hotly debated topic, which are military applications of AI. With huge links to all of these four issues here, in particular, first and the last one are also related to ethical issues. We'll see those ethical issues again. Now, the European Commission proposed something that is called now the AI Act in April of 2021. This is what the first draft of this document looked like. A very long title, a proposal for a regulation of the European Parliament and the Council, laying down harmonized rules on artificial intelligence, the Artificial Intelligence Act, and amending certain union legislative acts. So this is the title, super long. In short, it's the Artificial Intelligence Act, or in German, KI-Verordnung. And this first document was proposed and had about 120, 140 pages, something like this. What does it intend to do? The AI Act is a so-called horizontal regulation. And horizontal means for every use case, every industry. So if you want to use AI in no matter what industry, you need to comply. In contrast to horizontal regulation, there is vertical regulation. And vertical regulation would mean for a specific use case, a specific industry. So there's vertical regulation if you want to, I don't know, build airplanes or something like this, or nuclear power plants or financial products. And regulation is important because we want safe products. When you enter an airplane, a car, or run a power plant, you want it to be safe. Or if you buy a financial product, you also want it to be safe. Now, what were the initial comments on the AI Act proposal? So the first proposal, remember, April 2021. As usual, such proposals get very mixed reviews. If you talk to AI experts like me, we would say it's far too many rules, all driven by fear, actually not necessary to a large extent. And then you talk to representatives from civil society, like worker unions, NGOs, they would tell you it's not enough rules, we need much more rules. But it's probably the same for a lot of regulation proposals. Then one consequence is of such proposals that parliaments need to invite experts to discuss this. So there are hearings in parliaments. And while this proposal came from the EU, also the member states are obviously concerned about something like this, because the EU will ratify it, the member states need to agree to it, and eventually it will become national law. And it's an act, that means an act on the European level would apply as is to the member states. So the member states don't have freedom in changing it. Maybe they could add extra rules on top if they wish, but those rules first of all apply. So that's an act. Now parliaments do hearings, and I'm very concerned about this AI Act, because when I looked at the AI Act, I saw just fears, 120, 140 pages, just fears and rules, not a single rule on how you could actually foster innovation using AI. And this is more like a joke, but it's actually also not wrong when I saw this on the internet. If the headline is, we must regulate AI, maybe this means we must regulate nonlinear regression. If a headline in a newspaper could be, AI is getting better at mind reading, means function approximation is getting better at mind reading. Well, what exactly are the dangers posed by AI? What are exactly the dangers posed by the ReLU activation function? what I have felt for the last 3.5 years is that a lot of the politicians just lack an understanding of AI. So the actions of most politicians around the AI Act are purely driven by fears and not any understanding of what AI actually is. Now, parliaments do hearings, and I was 3 times in the German parliament invited in hearings. I was twice in the Digital Affairs Committee for hearings as an expert witness. And once there was a joint hearing of the European Affairs Committee of the German Parliament together with the French National Assembly. So the 2 committees had a joint session. I was also there as an expert witness. And I advised the Luxembourg National Parliament in a hearing. And once you're in such hearings, this leads to many follow-ups. So I've met many heads of government, heads of state in the last few years, many ministers all around the world. Because once you're an expert witness in the German parliament, that opens many doors. And once you're in such a hearing, you're featured in many large newspapers the next morning. So gives you lots of fame. But now let's say we want to regulate AI, and that's what the AI Act attempts to do. Yesterday, we said we want to define AI, and we struggled to adequately define it because it's so diverse and has intersections with many other domains. And I told you yesterday, if you want to regulate AI, you need a legal definition. The first draft of the AI Act said something like, the legal definition of AI is an AI can be rule-based expert systems, machine learning, in particular deep learning, every optimization algorithm, and every statistical method. But to me, that doesn't make any sense because if you calculate the average of 2 numbers, you're eventually calculating the expected value, which is a statistical method. Does that make my calculator an AI? Actually not, but from the AI Act, it does. And then I noticed that the first draft of, so the first hearing in the German parliament, which was this joint hearing of the European Affairs Committee together with the European Affairs Committee of the French National Assembly, was in May 2021. So just a few weeks after the AI Act, the draft of the AI Act was released. And the definition also said only software that does all of that would be AI. And then I said in the hearing, well, you don't need software to build all of this. You could do it from a purely hardware-based approach, and then it would not fall under the definition of AI, and it would thus not be regulated. Later, those people who had drafted the first version of the AI Act got in touch with me. So the ones who work in the commission, and they wanted to know from me, how can you do computing without software, and all of this. And I said, well, you just build an ASIC. It's just logic circuits. Software just adds flexibility. And they said, oh, we didn't know that. And I said, well, but you know this, you learn this in the first few weeks of the first semester when you study computer science. You learn Boolean logic and how to turn this into a digital circuit. So I felt those people who had drafted the AI Act, none of them actually had any understanding of what AI or computer science is. Now, what the AI Act does is it creates a risk pyramid. So there is low risk, 2 lower levels for low risk. There's a high risk and a forbidden area. So 4 levels. And there are things that the AI Act says is forbidden, like social scoring using AI. And with social scoring, again, social scoring can mean a lot. Social scoring can mean social scoring for your credit scoring, which we don't want to ban because otherwise people will not get loans at all anymore. We need this for a functioning market to get loans. But maybe we don't want social scoring like it's argued was happening in China in certain cities. So if you don't visit your parents often enough, you cannot take a train anymore, whatever. So there's these rumors about social scoring in China and that it was mass deployed, but I too wondered about this because I read about it in the news too. And my understanding is it was only partially tested in a few cities and it largely disappeared because if social scoring like this was national-wide deployed to everyone, many people would feel the consequences. And I just didn't see those consequences also when I talked to politicians. So I think what you hear in the Western world about social scoring in China is probably far more exaggerated than what is actually happening. At least this is I try to come to my own conclusions and talk to many people about this. And this is what I felt in the last few years. But we don't want social scoring like that at all in Europe. But then I said, maybe let's ban social scoring altogether, at least from social scoring by government, and not only related to AI, because AI is one way to do it. You could do it in a different way, and then it's not regulated. And then there's the high risk domain. And a high risk domain means you're still allowed to do it, but with high constraints. And what is high risk? What would mean a high risk AI application to you? Okay, medical data, yes. Yes. Military. Some more suggestions online. What's a high risk AI application to you? In which domain? If you have everything, send it to the chat. So biggest risk would mean to me, first of all, military and intelligence. And those are excluded. The AI Act doesn't apply to them. So AI Act doesn't look into military and intelligence. And this is where I would personally also see probably the biggest threats that are possible. But they are excluded because national security is an issue of the member states and not regulated by the EU. Then high risk means to me things that pose a threat to health and safety, or maybe your financial situation. And some of that, like medical applications, financial. So here we hear facial recognition, deep fake news. Yes, high risk, no doubt. Especially the facial recognition falls largely into the forbidden area now in the final version. And it's unclear how much facial recognition you can still do, because the AI Act eventually turned from 120 pages to like 400 pages after 3 years of discussions. And if you have extremely lengthy sentences with lots of commas, where you read some exceptions, but some non-exceptions, then it's hard to know what actually these definitions mean. And facial recognition is super important. You don't want to ban it altogether, because we need it, for example, in airports, also for automated passport checks. Otherwise, we have super long queues again if we leave the EU or want to enter. So I think there it's super important. And here we also hear other political concerns like influencing elections and all of this. I agree this could be high risk. Or applications to courts or prosecutors or police. And then again, there are other things that are suddenly high risk. For example, AI in education. If you use AI for automated admission to programs, not just universities, but also in private, that would be high risk too, because the understanding is someone would not be getting what he or she is entitled to or could be entitled to. Or if you use AI to customize a learning system to learn from the learner and customize the content, that too is high risk, because someone, again, may not be getting what he or she could be entitled to. And then in the first draft of the AI Act, high risk covered or came with very strict requirements for the training data, plus obviously documentation, risk management. And the first draft of the AI Act said stuff like, the data sets you use, they need to be free of error, no bias, absolutely complete. And absolutely complete data, again, would be actually a violation of the GDPR, the data protection that we have here in the EU. So none of that really made much sense to me. And I said, actually, there's maybe a good intention in the AI Act, but maybe you can summarize this on 2 pages, and then you write 100 pages about how you actually want to foster innovation in the EU. Because the AI Act like this will make innovation more expensive. Maybe some innovation will not happen at all because people are scared, or it will happen somewhere else on the globe, and this will not help us in international competition. And that's what I said in Parliament when I was there a few times for discussions. And when they invite, I don't know, 8 expert, sometimes in these hearings, there are 8 expert witnesses or so. Each group in the parliament can nominate 1 or 2 people. Can you guess how many AI experts there are actually if you invite 8 people, aside from me? Sometimes no other one. Then you have lawyers, you have lobbyists, whatever, you know, maybe someone, a representative from a union. And sometimes I feel some groups, so the groups of the parties, they invite someone who just says what that party wants to hear. And they're not necessarily experts. And AI is interdisciplinary, so obviously you need lawyers and others, but not just lobbyists, and maybe bring in 50% experts and 50% other people. And this is what I can see in digitalization, and probably it's exactly the same in other fields like agriculture, genomics, healthcare. There are not that many experts in such hearings. Something I also found confusing. I also provided written evidence to the parliament. It's in German, but you also find it in a Nextcloud directory in these papers or resources subdirectory. What I wrote for parliament, summarizing my views on like 4 pages, what seemed to me to be the key issues of the AI Act in its first version. I also wrote a book chapter about that. It's also in the Nextcloud directory. It appeared in one of my books. And then there were 3 years of discussion in Parliament. Eventually, there was a final version of the AI Act that looks much longer than the first one. So 400 pages in the old font, in old formatting, compared to 120 whatever pages in the first version. So it has grown a lot. And remember, the first version appeared in April 2021. What happened end of 2022 in AI? What appeared? Yeah. ChatGPT appeared. And generative AI, I mean, generative AI goes back to at least the 1970s, probably even earlier. So generative AI is nothing new. We're now using maybe ever larger neural networks to do this, but generative AI exists at least since the 1970s. And generative AI was not covered at all by the first version of the AI Act. And then ChatGPT appeared and everyone got scared, and suddenly they wanted to add specific regulation for foundation models and all of this, because they felt a foundation model could create some systematic error or could be a systematic threat to society if many people use them. And I think eventually it's just text, you know. But I think a lot of the politicians and regulators, they think it could all get out of control on its own and take over the world. And if you debate such stuff for 3 years in parliaments, it's getting longer and longer, because every 6 months, the presidency of the council changes on the EU level. That in every member state that chaired the council had a new direction, what they wanted to focus on. Then parliament tabled, I think, more than 800 amendments to the draft of the AI Act. And that's why it gets longer and longer, and ever longer sentences with more commas, and no one knows what it means. Big problem. Now, I told you the first draft of the AI Act, how it defined AI. And this definition was changed often during those 3 years. And it was eventually changed just before the AI Act was passed in Parliament again. But I think if you change the legal definition, everything else may have to be changed as well. But that didn't happen. And this is now the definition of the AI, of AI in the AI Act. So an AI system means a machine-based system that is designed to operate with varying levels of autonomy and that may exhibit adaptiveness after deployment, and that for explicit or implicit objectives infers from the input it receives how to generate outputs such as predictions, content, recommendations, or decisions that can influence physical or virtual environments. And you'll have now 1 hour during the lunch break to think about that definition, what you could infer from it, if you agree with it or not, what it actually means. And we'll discuss it after lunch.